Well, hi everybody. Welcome to episode 3 of Gays Anonymous. I'm your host, A. Welcome back. Welcome back. I am joined in Zoom studio by a guest. So exciting, my first guest. Welcome to the pod.
Thank you so much for having me.
Of course, thank you for being here. Before we get started, I always like to tell people that they can submit questions if they have them to gaysanonymous224@gmail.com. Feel free to do that if you'd like. Relationship advice, questions about the LGBTQIA2 plus community, questions you're interested to know about myself. I will try to answer them. You can remain anonymous if you'd like, which is the reasoning for this podcast. But let's go ahead and jump right in.
That sounds good.
Well, first off, how are you?
I'm doing pretty good. Again, sorry I was running a little late. McDonald's has spicy McNuggets back, so
That's huge. Right.
Yeah.
No. I also heard that and was really jealous because I had some very mid ramen about 5 minutes ago.
Oh, like the real cheap plasticky kind. They're like
You mean like top ramen? Is that what you're talking about?
Right, like the
The plasticky kind? What are you talking about?
The cheap
Like
stuff, you know what I mean.
No, it actually is like the Costco stuff, but I think I made it mid by what I did with the sauce. Like I added too much water. I think I made it mid, which is like even worse.
I really appreciate your vulnerability there because you did not have to take credit for that, you know?
Thank you so much. Yeah.
But I will say one thing before we talk about anything else. They did not release the sauce though that used to come with the spicy McNuggets.
Oh, okay.
You know what I'm talking about?
I don't think I do. I'm not a sauce gal.
Oh, it was like hot, sweet, tangy. It was so good. And I asked for it this time. They didn't have it. Like the hottest we have is buffalo. I'm like, that's fine. Did not realize how critical that was.
You're like, it's not fine, apparently.
No, I'm gonna go back actually.
Anyway, go back to the drive-thru.
Just be warned that the sauce is not there, and you might find yourself realizing that was more important than you realized.
I will put that in the notes for this particular podcast and be like, miss the sauce because that's so important.
It's too neat, get it out, you know.
Right. Yeah. Thanks for that. I do want to say I'm a little bit tired. I am post 5K. My first and maybe last 5K, and I did want to bring this up because I do have some fans on Instagram. I did get second, not overall, just in the non-binary category, and there were only 4 non-binary people doing the 5K. So thank you to everyone who was like, oh my God, yes, because I may never do one again. But I did get second because there were only 4 people that were in the non-binary category. I just wanted to
I think
be true to myself there.
I think we have to clarify our relationship to a degree before I just really lean into that. Just for like some impression management.
We're friends. For you.
Right? Like we're friends. Like
yes.
I can say what I'm about to say. I'm not a random guest that's just about to completely lambaste you. You know what I mean? But
go ahead.
It really, how do I say this sensitively? It's giving non-binary to talk about a 5K like you're training for a half marathon, and I don't quite know what I mean by that.
Okay. I love that you're like,
what I mean.
I love that you had to do damage control prior to saying that, just to make sure that no one. You smothered the host, like you're so rude. It's okay.
Right.
I think I have like
anonymous hate.
I've got like 6 people that really hit this podcast hard, and I think you'll be okay because I am still anonymous technically, so I think you'll be all right.
If one of those people can analyze this voice and figure this out, I do not need that hate in my DMs.
That's so fair and fine. And honestly, someone probably could, for sure.
Do you know what I mean though? Like it's so like yes, it's a 5K. That's amazing. Like we should all work out and stuff, but I just think like it's not a half marathon, you know. I just wish people would stop treating it like that.
Okay, but like it's crazy because I paid to do that. I paid to go run and like get up so early and like basically hang out with a bunch of people that also run, and we all just ran and we got excited about it. And then other people ran further than us and also paid to do that. And that's on that. I don't know. I
Can
don't know
you
what to say
walk
about
me
that.
through the psychology of paying to do that? Because I truly, I'm not just saying this because I'm here right now. I have said multiple times, you will never catch me paying to run, to exercise
See,
or
I
anything.
was worried you were going to ask this because it has to do with my ex. And
Uh,
this wouldn't be an LGBTQ slash like queer podcast if I didn't bring up my ex. But we're not going to get into it. There's layers there. Okay. So this is more so something that I had signed up for like months ago and didn't train for it and was like, yeah, let me just go ahead and do that. Yeah.
okay.
Deep breath.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, but why, but you still did it. I guess that maybe there's not like a refund program or something, but like
Well, I could have deferred to next year. Like I could have like you can defer, but they
you need
make
a
you
year of
pay
training.
$20. I need another year of training for the
No,
5K.
you're right.
Could you imagine?
You're right. You had two options. I mean, you already messed up by signing up in the first place, but you had two options, right? You
Right.
either
I
go
could
do it
mess up again and have to pay
or
$20 for it.
or deal with the guilt of, paying for exercise. And some other poor non-binary person would have placed higher, and we just can't have that.
Okay. All right. We're gonna get into the questions here,
Okay.
dear old friend. Um, because I'm just simply done talking about that.
That's totally fair.
Okay, our first question that was submitted is I have a friend that is queer, but will not come out or talk openly about it. They're still very much ashamed of it and are not living their authentic life. I see how they are struggling, but whenever I bring it up, they shut down or create distance between us. How can I help them without pushing them away?
Hmm.
What are your thoughts on this?
Oh, really shifting the tides quickly, aren't we? I think that's really hard, and it feels like a cop out, but I think a lot of it has to do like with personal circumstances and safety. Right? Like
Mm-hmm.
it's first important to know. I mean, obviously we don't have the context, but is this a safe area or school or place for this person to come out? And I think you have to weigh that. And it's not the same for everyone. Not everyone lives in a liberal city or comes from a welcoming family. And I think then it has a different timeline too. I know a
Right.
lot of, queer folk who um even working alongside a counselor, essentially in tandem decided that it would be a better idea to come out once they were able to leave a certain town, place, circumstance, whatever. It
Sure.
feels very counterintuitive, I feel like, to a lot of the messaging we get, which is the most important thing no matter what is to be authentic. I see you struggling, and I think it's natural as a friend to want to go in and help that.
Yeah.
But I think a lot of times too, the best thing to do in that situation as a friend is just supporting them where they're at. And I know that sounds trite, but I think it's really true.
I know I didn't ask you this specifically, but I think both as like helping professionals, meeting people where they're at is the best way you can support somebody
Mm-hmm.
in a lot of ways. Yeah, I think you can see that, but also that internal struggle. I mean, who knows what else they're going through? I think what you talked about with safety is a big piece of that too, is like they may feel like they could, but they can't because of, a family
Right.
member that you don't know about, or, something's coming up in their lives and they can't come out because then this person's going to know or this is going to happen. And so it's such an individual experience that I think you have to treat it as that. And I think our messaging around sometimes like just queer things in general is like this because it is a collective experience in some ways, but it's also so individual.
It
And
is.
so I
And
think it's very kind of this person to want their friend to live as authentically as possible, but I think that has to come from within that other person. Like
I
it's their authenticity, right?
I'm processing as we're both going along here. That's also not what the person was asking, right? How do I do this broadly? So,
Right.
assuming that they are understanding, the individual contextual factors. But I think as I'm sitting here thinking about it, the best thing, especially because of like the distancing aspect, if they bring it up,
Mm-hmm.
is just showing that you're a safe person.
Right.
I think that is so underrated. And it doesn't have to be big, it doesn't have to be a big gesture that's going to make anyone uncomfortable, but just talking about queer issues. I mean, basically just making your allyship known, I think is big because then when they are ready to finally talk about it, if they want to, then they know that they came with you. And I think that's the best gift you can give to somebody who's in that situation. And then that gets away from the, well, I feel like I have to probe or do this, or coming at them. It's saying, hey, when you want to, you absolutely can with me. I'm a safe person. We can talk about this while also like respecting their autonomy. And I think
Yes.
that's the best you can really do as a friend in that situation.
No, I think that's a great way of putting it. I guess to kind of just put that in similar but different terms, it's like allowing them to bring things up versus you bringing it up all the time. But I think that then also in the context that you were just talking about, I think that can be just an open dialogue of like, hey, if you ever want to talk about this,
Right.
I'm here for you. I'm not going to push it.
Right.
Because
And
there's
I think
obviously
that's
something internal going on that's keeping them from and wanting to shut you out by bringing it up. So it's like take that step back, allow for that autonomy, and I think give them the time and space they need because they're doing or needing other help.
and it's hard to do.
Yeah,
It's hard to be a friend in that situation. It
of
really is.
course.
Because yeah, you could have that one conversation like, hey, I'm here when you're ready. But I think the other ask, which is, I don't know if fair is the right word, but to like advertise that you're an ally or in support of, sometimes takes being a little, it's more subtle, it's more creative, and I really, it takes a little more intention there. But I do think that's important to do too. And that way you're not stuck in that position of like the person that asked the question is, well, whatever, I, do this certain thing or bring it up, I get pushback. So how you, I guess that would be
And
the
it
next
does
question
have
is,
to be
how do you
creative.
subtly show someone that you're a safe person
You
without,
wear rainbow.
there it
No.
is. That's right. I mean, you just get your face painted as a giant rainbow and
And
that'll
you
do it. But
say, yeah, you just get like a t-shirt that says number one ally, and you're
right,
just wearing it all the time when you're with that person.
that's it.
Obviously
It's
not.
done.
It does
Right.
have to be more subtle than that. But yeah, maybe it is like it. I guess if we wanted to go into examples of that, I'm thinking like maybe it's inviting to like maybe kind of queer events that are going on, or
Mhm.
like suggesting that as like a place to go with like other options so that it's like an option to go to if you feel like doing that or want to explore that, but it doesn't have to be what you do that night. Or
Right.
yeah, just again, I think it's tough to think about the creative pieces without specific examples, but
Well, let
uh
me ask you this one,
yeah.
because I was trying to think, how do I do this in a, not on the nose sense? Like even
Mm-hmm.
inviting someone to, like, I think that's a great strategy, a great thing to do. But also what you're doing is saying, hey, I have a feeling you're gay, or I know you're gay. I bet you'd like to go to a drag show, right? And so I'm trying to think of things that suggest that you're, you know, safe or accepting, open. I think the one thing that came to mind, and I'm curious of your take on it, is just checking and saying, hey, I just think it's a good thing to do every once in a while. Like, want to make sure I'm respecting your pronouns. What are your pronouns these days? Mine are this. And just doing some of those behaviors, attitudes, showing the value of like just inclusivity, I guess. And I think
Yeah.
that's one universal way that doesn't out anyone or marginalize anyone. We all have pronouns. I think it's a nice way to at least open up, like, if you're asking about pronouns, whether it signals you're an ally or not, it at least signals that you respect the individual, right? Beyond like it doesn't matter to me how you answer, or I wouldn't ask. I don't know.
I know
What do you think
I
of that?
do like that example because I think you're bringing up something that like we as queer people or people in the LGBTQIA2 plus spectrum, like that's something that I think everybody has kind of thought about. I get that because I don't think it's bad to suggest a drag show, and I don't think that
I don't
inherently is like
either.
a queer thing.
Right.
But I do
That's a
see what
good
you're
point.
saying with like that's something that you can literally do that just feels so kind of throw it away, right? Like
Right.
I can say this to you and you can respond to it or not. It can change or it doesn't have to, but you are opening up a window into like, hey, these are things that I care about, and if you want to share them with me, you can. So
Right.
I really
Right.
like that example. I think that's great.
But I think that's a really good point too. I feel like that was some of my own stuff coming up with like, well, that's just so on the nose gay, right? That
Yeah.
suggestion.
Yeah.
But that's interesting. So I was sitting here trying to think of how do I, more covertly do this, which may not be necessary. It again depends on the person.
I
I just
do think
thinking,
it depends on the person, right?
yeah,
Like because they might be really uncomfortable with what a drag show means and what that says about them if they are, this may be within themselves not comfortable.
hmm
So I think you're right to say that like that might be a little much, but I don't think it's something that inherently should be like shied away from. I think you could introduce
agreed.
that as like an event or something that you'd be interested in. And
Yeah,
if they shut it down, they shut it down, right?
right,
Like
right.
you don't
Back
have
to
to
the
do it
drawing board.
again,
And
really.
you can make a mistake
You,
if it's perceived as a mistake.
you can make a mistake, yes,
Yeah,
absolutely. Should we go on to question number two?
let's do it.
Okay. Question number two. The gay community is so small. What is your advice for how to date within your community without burning every bridge along the way?
Uh,
Don't live in a small town.
yeah, that would help. Get out of the Midwest. No, I don't know. I, it is the same pool, but it's not the same pool. It's a smaller pool. Yes.
Sure.
And of course, then there's more opportunities to run into people, or your friends are dating the same people. No doubt, it's different.
Hmm.
But I still think the same, just fundamental human decency rules apply, and that will help. I mean, there's no
Right.
other, I don't think there's a better solution than that. It's just, managing your own emotions in the moment. So trying to avoid any kind of explosivity, um, and just treating people with respect, and that will avoid burning bridges as best as possible.
Right. Right.
um, what would you say?
I mean, this is gonna go right over your head. I just know because I know you. But if anyone's ever seen the L word, like this is something that happens. Like it is, like you said, inherently a smaller community. If you
Mhm.
live in, I mean, even kind of like bigger towns, but just inherently the community is smaller, and so people know each other. But like you said, if you are a decent human being that communicates well, that um is respectful, has
Mhm.
boundaries, and doesn't, I don't know, I guess like mess people around and like create triangles and just do it for like the drama of it. Like if you're someone that's like you're probably going to date someone that knows
Correct.
somebody that you've dated or knows someone else that they know that then they've dated. Like you're going to know each other, I think naturally, or you're going to know someone that knows that person. And so I do think you just have to come from a place of respect and people are
See,
going to know each other. You're just going to need to be kind, be aware of that, be thinking about that.
I think that's a good point. Having that insight too, I think leads to just what's just very undervalued, just a good old upfront conversation. If
Mm,
you know that someone in your friend group has a history with this person, the value of just sitting down with that person, naming it, acknowledging it. Look,
right.
I know there's this history exists. Here's kind of the current status. Wanted to check in with you because you're also important to me. Whether it might still be something that is difficult or uncomfortable for them in the moment, and then that's kind of theirs to carry and decide what that means. But at least giving them the agency to do that instead of I'm going to
Right.
go and do this and then see how you react. I'm now kind of forcing you to decide how you want to play this when I could have just went to you first and kind of evaluated the setting. I also think though there are
Yeah.
exceptions to that. If it's your best friend and it's the person they just broke up with 2 days ago, don't go have that coffee talk. Of course, they don't want you to do that, but
Right.
so
Right.
I mean, within limits. But I think up front, just being candid, always leading with, I realize this could be really hurtful. I would get that this could be really hard.
Right.
Goes so far.
that that ask of like how could we handle this best together could be such a powerful conversation and allows for both people to have that open dialogue, which I think is
Yeah.
huge when it comes to um dating in a small place or dating where just in general the people and places overlap and you're gonna see your ex or your ex
Yeah.
is gonna see somebody else. Like absolutely, I think too. Yeah, when it comes to the like dating your ex's best friend or something like that, yeah, don't do that. Like if
Don't
you
do it.
don't want it done to you, don't do that to somebody else. Like
That's a
just
that's a great way to check in.
yeah. Would
If
I
it's
would
no
I
matter
be
what,
offended by my ex doing this to me or my friend doing this to me?
right.
Then I think you've got a good like probably not.
which is
Right.
different than this would be hurtful. I wouldn't enjoy that.
Mm-hmm.
There's that limit there. Like, let's start with that self-reflection. If this is a complete no, this is a friendship ruining. If I was in that position,
Right.
very different than can I deal with the uncomfortable emotions of it. Uh,
Totally.
I also think what that upfront conversation allows is you hear it from the source before it, not only before it happens, but is there anything worse than finding out about it from somebody else in the group? I mean, that
Oof.
snowballs and makes it a bigger
Right.
problem than it is. You already feel, out of the loop, or that they didn't think they could come and tell me. It makes you question your relationship with the other person. I mean,
Right.
I just think of the
Adding fuel to the
best gift you
fire.
can give is just to name it, have it come from you. That's the most respectful
Yep.
thing that you can do.
Name it, communicate it, sometimes communicate it to death,
It
but
reminds me,
communicate it,
it's a There's a quote from Easy A that my partner loves. So it's, I had to find out from Jackie Radetsky. That, I mean, it's a it's a funny example of that, but I think it's really true. Nobody likes to find out about anything that is potentially painful or uncomfortable that involves them from somebody else. It
I
just immediately
yes.
puts you on your heels, and it's
Right.
not going to go well.
I heard what you said, but I also wanted to state that I didn't ever ask you like what brought you here, but now they know because you quoted Easy A. Okay.
Yeah, asked and
Now we're
answered.
good. He's got a partner, and Easy A has been
Yep.
quoted.
I'm taken, folks. I'm forming a
Everyone
line.
everyone was asking.
Stop flooding her Instagram. He is
Yeah,
off
I
it.
have so many comments. DMs. I don't know. I'm a millennial.
Yeah.
Okay. Next question. This one's a bit longer, so bear with me here. I still hold a lot of resentment towards my parents for not protecting me when I was young and different. They are accepting and loving now, but contributed to a lot of fear when I was younger. Since they have made such big strides to support me now, do you think it's healing or helpful to have a conversation with my parents about this? Or do I need to do that healing on my own?
Oh,
Mm-hmm.
like that's my. I'm just gonna answer every question with oh.
Ooh,
They're
yeah.
really good questions. If I'm being honest, I think I personally struggle with this one, not just in this context, but
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to. They're doing so good now. Is it even worth, bringing this up? I don't want them to feel bad about themselves, guilty, etc. Which is kind of a savior thing, really. It's a protective mode. But I think if you are asking that question, then it's 100% worth the
Mm-hmm.
conversation. It's
Yeah.
it's clearly there. It's festering. It's important, and you can, in the same way that the person that asked that question did, you can also acknowledge that it means the world to me how our relationship is now, the acceptance and the love that I feel. And I am very grateful for that.
Yeah.
While also holding, though, that the process it took for us to get to there, though, was painful, had this impact, did this.
Mm-hmm.
And it just feels important for me to share that with you as part
Right.
of me being able to feel safe and comfortable as myself. And again, it's kind of that sandwich, right? It's like, but and thank you again for why we're here. It's good, and I think that's important and good to do. But
Yeah.
it gives the other person a chance to reflect and say, yeah, of course. And I think, if anything, if the relationship is how it is now, based on this question, it's good. They're going to be able to handle that conversation, that criticism, in most cases. And I
Sure.
think as long as you, with anything else, lead with respect and feelings, and not coming from this antagonizing or blaming place, or you did this to me and it caused this. You just say, it was painful, though, the process here in getting to where we are now, and that was really hard on me.
Yeah.
And just let it be that. And how does that person then respond to that? And I think that is probably a productive space. So I guess that's a ramble, but if you're asking that question, I think it's 100% worth bringing.
I think I was gonna say it's giving improv. It's giving yes and right.
Yeah.
For me, it's giving the do you think it's healing or helpful to have a conversation? To me, it's saying like yes, it would be helpful, or do I need to do that healing on my own? I think and there's healing to be done on your own. I think both can be
Yes.
true, both can exist, and I think you're very right in saying that the reason for asking this question is that there is still seemingly a part of this person that feels like there was hurt that maybe was not acknowledged, right? At
Right.
the end of the day. And so, yeah, do I think you have the ability or I don't know how to say that better, but like, are you able to tell somebody that they hurt you, but they're doing better now? Like, yeah,
Yeah.
like those things can exist together. And I think the other part of this, though, for me is like, I think asking and kind of reflecting on like what keeps me from doing that now? Is there a sense of fear that things would revert back to the way they were? Is it safe to do so? I think there are some other questions to ask yourself of like, what's keeping me from having this conversation? Is it just fear of the unknown? Is it fear that this is going to become an unsafe space for me? Because I think I would then on that, like if it's the fear of the safety and like of your space, or like they're going to kick me out if we have this
Right.
conversation, then I think that's a very different answer from me. But I think if your hesitation with this is a fear or sort of an internal sense of like, I just don't know what's going to happen. Are they going
Right.
to be okay with it? Those are all feelings that are coming up for you. And
Correct.
I think you have to have that conversation to then let that person respond and give them
Really,
the ability to respond.
a really good point. Is it worth bringing up? Yes. Should you bring it up? Maybe a different question. And I think
Right.
you're right. It goes back to what we said in the first question about like the safety of it all. And your whoever it is in your life, you know this person well. And just taking a second to step back and think about how they've responded to any kind of perceived criticism in the past,
Mm-hmm.
probably a good proxy for making that next decision of well, should I do this? Is it worth bringing up? Yes. And you brought up another good point. You shouldn't put all your eggs in that this conversation is going to heal you or now it's done. Like you said, it's the
Mm-hmm.
yes and. You're not if your intention in going to that conversation that this person is going to heal that inner child hurt wound,
Right.
no. Right.
Yeah.
Of course not. And so I think it's a important part of that healing process, absolutely, in the right safe circumstances. But no, of course, that's going to be an ongoing journey, something that can also be done in individual therapy, counseling, supportive friend, you name it.
Yeah.
But you're right. If the intention is I want to do this so that I can remove this hurt, probably,
Yeah.
another thing to consider with the should part, right?
I know this question has gotten so nuanced as we've kind of unpacked it, but I think what I would say for this person who submitted this is like, I think ask yourself some more questions
Mhm.
about what you're hoping to get out of this conversation, what it is that you're hoping for in general. And yeah, like what have these people, this person, how have they reacted to criticism before? Would I
Mhm.
be okay with that outcome? Would I be
Right.
okay with an outcome of it not looking good? Like just
Yeah.
questions like that,
Right.
because I think when it comes to I don't know. I think my sort of red flags or kind of things come up of like dig a little bit deeper, making sure we're safe. What would that look like? Because there has been issues in the past. And so how do we not let that necessarily paint that it's going to be a bad experience moving through, but giving that space and knowing that it could go badly, and how do we feel about that? Or
Right.
what other things like support, other friends, a therapist do we have in place that would be helpful in maybe kind of navigating that space? So, very nuanced question. I think you could go in a lot of different ways, but I think really to me it's just exploring and asking yourself some more questions
Right.
and
Because
getting
if
some other support too.
yeah, and if the intention is, I think the best thing in these conversations that it's going to strengthen and repair potentially the relationship.
Mhm.
If that's the goal, great.
Right.
Uh, anyway, that's another.
Yeah. I know
Probably
we
should
could,
move
I feel
on.
like I know we could talk about this for days, but I really feel like whoever asked that, I really feel for you. I'm sure that other people have felt this way before. Thank you for asking this question in general because it's brought up some really important things and feel
Mhm.
for you, thinking about you. Next question here. Even though I have been openly gay for nearly 12 years now, when someone asks me if I'm gay, I still feel offended or put off by it for some reason and don't know what to do about it. What's the deeper issue here that I need to work through?
Ooh,
Another deep one. I'm giving you all the deep ones.
that I mean, it's a cop out. It's an impossible question to answer. I think the best way to approach this is to answer it as if it was myself. I think it's something that a lot of people can relate to. And then perhaps if that resonates with whoever asked that, then great. But I, of course, am not going to tell you what's wrong with you because of whatever feelings come up.
Right.
But at least for me, because I can relate, it's a couple things. I think it is an internalized homophobia, absolutely. The messaging that you receive early on that that was wrong, and you spend your life as a marginalized person hiding this part of yourself, this identity, I think it sends that alarm in your nervous system again. Like, I got caught, I got caught, I'm getting
Mm-hmm.
caught, I'm getting caught. Um, and at the root of it still is, do you feel okay that you're gay? What does that mean? Uh, and I think those, I mean, I think they're related, but I think that's what a lot of it can come up with. So really, I think it's a little bit of internalized homophobia. It's some shame. It's the practice of hiding those things, hiding that part of you because you want to seem, more straight passing, whatever it is. At least that's what it
Mm-hmm.
was for me. Um, and I think at least now, I think initially it would bring up more of the shame. Now it just kind of feels like this like flashback memory of those times in school when you heard a rumor about you being gay or
Mm.
someone saw what you were doing, maybe a skill, a talent, what you were participating in, talking about, and being like, "Are you gay?" I don't know. Does that make sense?
Yeah. No, I really appreciate this perspective because excuse me, because I'm wondering if it's different based on like how, I mean, I think it's different based on like how you experience queerness, you're coming out, like so many different layers of that process. Because I feel like when I came out, I was like, who can I tell? I want everyone to know. I would not have been offended. I probably would have been happy for someone to be like, "Wait, are you gay?" I'd be like, "Absolutely." You know what I mean? I was at the gay bar, like so
Ready to go.
right, because it felt like a freeing thing.
Right.
But I think you're right with like if you have experienced this sense of like a very internal or like external this fear of someone finding this out or a family member or you felt unsafe and you're like no one can know this. I don't even want to be this. Then of
Right.
course somebody openly being like are you is not going to feel good
Right.
even being out. Like yeah, you're
I
going
mean,
to
if you
have
spent
that.
15, 20 years, like, the classic, like, pray the gay away,
Mhm.
that's not going to change overnight. That you're just all of a sudden, yeah, well, you know what?
Yeah.
It is what it is. Guess it. Guess the thoughts and prayers didn't work. So here we are, and now I love it. I mean, of course not.
Right. Right.
There was a reason you wanted to go away because it was marginalizing. It was scary. It was messaged to. Again, I should just speak for myself, dear God. But it was very much known that that was not a good thing to be.
Right.
And that's an ongoing process just in and of itself. Once you do come out, like, here I am, like, at first it kind of feels like a big, here's my weakness, and I hope that, but I'm still the same. I mean, all that stuff
Mhm.
to then be able to integrate that within yourself as it's, the whole self concept is I'm good, I'm okay, I'm safe.